The story begins with Scarlett reflecting on her life, feeling like a doll on display in her father's shop. Her father asks if she understands, and she, inwardly, recalls his words from her childhood. After marriage, obey your husband. Her father emphasizes her responsibilities as the eldest daughter of the Chandler family. Scarlett obediently agrees. She considers herself a good child, docile and calm, never dreaming of exceeding her boundaries, believing herself easy to raise. When Scarlett turns 20, her father sends her to the capital to marry a powerful duke named Samuel Huntington. Betrothed to him, she wonders what kind of man he is, hoping he's a good person. Nervous about meeting her unseen fiancé copyright, she arrives at the duke's mansion with a naive heart. She's awestruck by its opulence, noting how different the duke's house is. Meanwhile, a servant knocks, announcing Miss Chandler's arrival. The Duke instructs them to let her in. Scarlett enters and greets the Duke, introducing herself as Scarlett Chandler. Duke Sigmund Huntington acknowledges her, thanking her for coming. Scarlett responds demurely, sensing a cold atmosphere. She expresses her gratitude, feeling honored despite being only a baron's daughter. Suddenly, a woman's voice interrupts, calling Samuel's name. Scarlett, hearing the voice, wonders who it is. The woman enters, inquiring who Scarlett is, asking if she's the one Samuel mentioned. The Duke confirms it, and introduces the woman as Joy, whose full name is Joshua. Joy greets Scarlett warmly, saying she can call her Joy, just like Sam does. Scarlett asks who Joy is to him. Duke Samuel Huntington replies that Joy is the woman he loves. He then emphasizes to Scarlett that, as a baron's daughter, the position of Duchess is a great honor. He sets two conditions. First, not to interfere with him and Joy. Second, to act like a married couple in public. If she adheres to these conditions, he promises to treat her as the mistress of the Huntington family. He reminds her that he has given her the title of Duchess, exceeding her station, so she can't claim she can't meet these demands. Scarlett recalls her father's teachings from childhood. After marriage, obey your husband. She reflects on how she was raised to be a good daughter, obedient to her father and future husband. This is why she believes Samuel chose her. A maid tells Scarlett that she has chosen a dress that looks very calm, saying nothing symbolizes tranquility and purity more than white. Another maid comments that while the dress may not be the latest fashion, it suits Scarlett well. The first maid advises Scarlett to always keep herself tidy, especially considering her red hair, which can easily look messy. Scarlett mentions she wants to sleep early as the wedding is tomorrow. However, as she gets into bed, she finds she can't sleep. Meanwhile, in another room, Joshua pleads with Sam not to leave. Despite Joshua's distress and questioning whether he really needs to marry Scarlett, Duke Samuel insists he needs to prepare for the wedding. Scarlett overhears this conversation from outside the door. Inside the room, Duke Samuel consoles Joshua, saying the marriage is just a formality and everything he does is for her. Joshua expresses her anger, unable to bear the thought of Samuel spending his wedding night with Scarlett. Samuel tries to appease her, affirming his love only for her. When Joshua questions Scarlett's importance, Samuel dismissively says Scarlett is merely a tool to bear children. Scarlett, eavesdropping outside, is stunned by this revelation. Samuel continues, explaining that Scarlett's father sold her into this marriage after hearing his other child had a chance to become a knight. A heartbroken Scarlett returns to her room, reflecting on her obedience and the belief that dutifulness would be rewarded with love. In a moment of defiance, she rips apart her wedding dress. She declares she can no longer live under this false pretense. The next morning, Duke Samuel arrives, shocked to see the wedding dress torn to shreds. A maid explains that Scarlett had already been in disarray when she went out drinking early that morning. Another maid implies Joshua was responsible. She points out that while Joshua pretends to be the mistress here, she was unhappy when the real Duchess arrived. Duke Samuel asks Moore if there's proof Joshua is to blame. Moore responds by urging Samuel to reconsider his relationship with Joshua, emphasizing his impending marriage and role as head of the family. Samuel insists Joshua is his lover and asks that the matter be dropped. However, Moore argues that ignoring such behavior could have serious consequences. Scarlett interjects, confirming Mrs. Moore's concerns, but insists the matter must be handled discreetly. She stresses that news of the wedding dress incident on the morning of the ceremony would damage the Duke's reputation. She expresses her desire to avoid a public scandal, demonstrating understanding of the situation. Duke Samuel acknowledges Scarlett's comprehension referring to her as his wife. Scarlett explains that although she is a baron's daughter, she learned etiquette from her merchant father. In return for fulfilling the two conditions Samuel set, she requests permission to have other men as well. Samuel agrees, allowing her a private life as he has, but stipulates that she cannot become pregnant with another man's child, nor spread details of her private life to tarnish their marriage. Scarlett agrees to these terms and promises to remember them. Duke Samuel asks how Scarlett intends to deal with the ruined dress. Scarlett explains that she had another dress in mind when she purchased the wedding gown, originally intending to wear it at the reception. Duke Samuel agrees and instructs everyone to keep today's events confidential, urging caution to avoid any mishaps on this important day. Scarlett considers the dress incident a minor setback in her larger plan. Despite being treated like a cheap commodity, she feels she has secured both position and freedom. A maid helps Scarlett into the new wedding dress, expressing surprise at her figure. Moore remarks to Scarlett that her dress design might be too daring for a bride, suggesting she at least loosen her hair. Scarlett asks Nora to draw her eyebrows a little higher to better complement her face and the dress. She also requests that the earrings and necklace be changed to matching gemstones and that her bouquet be adorned with her father's tie and her mother's diamond brooch. Nora, noticing the change in atmosphere, compliments Scarlett's beauty. With everything ready, Scarlett declares it's time to begin. She stands with Duke Samuel on the wedding stage. A large number of guests have gathered. After Scarlett changes, Nora informs her that while a reception wasn't originally planned, one was hastily arranged because a member of the royal family, Prince Kingsley, an old friend of Duke Samuel, decided to attend. A weary Scarlett takes Duke Samuel's hand, allowing him to lead her to the venue. As they approach, Duke Samuel points out Prince Kingsley, suggesting they go greet him. During this, Scarlett accidentally bumps into a lady, causing the lady's glass to fall and shatter. The lady apologizes and asks if Scarlett is hurt. Scarlett finds a shard of glass embedded in her foot. She tells Duke Samuel she needs to go to her room to clean it up. Duke Samuel asks if she can walk on her own. Scarlett reassures him it's not serious, telling him not to worry. At that moment, a man approaches, congratulating Duke Samuel on his marriage. As Scarlett is about to leave, a young man suddenly approaches her from behind, taking her hand and asking if she's all right. Scarlett wonders who he is, noticing he appears to be a nobleman. She assures him she's fine. The young man, observing her unsteady gait, inquires if something is wrong with her foot. Scarlett insists she can manage. However, the young man knelt before her, examining her foot and discovering the glass shard. He told her she couldn't walk like this and needed to remove the shard and disinfect the wound immediately. Then, he lifted Scarlett into his arms. She was surprised by his strength. The young man carried Scarlett outside, setting her on a bench to examine her injured foot. He warned her that applying the medicine would sting a little. He advised that although he had performed basic first aid, she should still see a doctor for proper treatment. Scarlett asked who he was and why he carried a first aid kit. The young man explained that as a guard, he always carried a simple first aid kit. Realizing he must be a knight, Scarlett noted his unusual appearance for a swordsman and considered his strength. The young man offered to escort Scarlett back to her room, but she declined, preferring to walk on her own. She expressed her desire not to be seen being assisted by another man on her wedding day. The young man understood and respected her wishes. Scarlett thanked him for his help and asked his name. He introduced himself as Edmund Lewis. Scarlett told Edmund Lewis she would repay his kindness. Meanwhile, Duke Samuel remarked to Prince Kingsley that he had drunk too much, suggesting he eat more and reminding him it was his wedding. Scarlett apologized to Duke Samuel for keeping him waiting. Samuel turned, addressing her as his wife, explaining that she needn't come downstairs as he was about to come up. Scarlett, surprised by his eagerness, heard Samuel reveal he couldn't wait any longer. They needed to fulfill the agreement. Scarlett was confused by the mention of an agreement. Samuel then told Prince Kingsley he was going upstairs with his wife. He and Scarlett proceeded to their room. Samuel thought to himself that Scarlett was merely a tool to bear an heir. Scarlett questioned Duke Samuel, asking if intimacy was truly necessary, given her understanding of her role as his lawful wife. Duke Samuel confirmed that it was. He explained that it would be considered unusual if a newly married couple didn't celebrate their wedding night. He insisted intimacy was part of her duty. Scarlett asked why this was necessary. Samuel asked if this was her first time. He dismissed her concerns, remarking that country girls were often troublesome. He then decided to go upstairs first, telling Scarlett he would give her some time, and to join him in the new room when she was ready. Scarlett sat on the sofa, drinking and contemplating her situation. She felt like nothing more than a tool for procreation, comparing her experience to being sold as a commodity. The impending humiliation and the dreaded wedding night filled her with despair. She decided that if this was how it was going to be, she didn't want to understand her worth. Distraught, she decided to leave the room. As she stepped out, she encountered Edmund Lewis. Seeing him, she called out his name. Edmund, noticing something was amiss, asked what was wrong. In response, Scarlett kissed Edmund passionately, pressing her lips against his. After the kiss, she told him she needed him, asking for his help again, her voice pleading but offering no further explanation. After they undressed, Scarlett and Edmund Lewis became intimate. Following their time together, Scarlett dressed, as did Edmund. She thanked him, expressing gratitude that he didn't ask any questions. Meanwhile, in another room, Duke Samuel waited for Scarlett. When she arrived, Samuel remarked that she was late. Scarlett replied that the preparations were complete. Inwardly, she reflected on her role as merely a vessel for childbirth, hoping to conceive a child. Despite the lack of love from her husband, Samuel, feeling somewhat tired, was reluctant to go to bed without some amusement. He toyed with a bird, then abruptly snapped its neck. Scarlett was startled by the act. Samuel then placed the bird back in its cage, declaring it sufficient for their wedding night. He instructed Scarlett to stay in a new room until morning, while he went to see Joshua. As Scarlett lay in bed, she thought back on the events of the day, acknowledging that nothing of significance had happened between her and Samuel. She thought of Edmund, grateful for his kindness and his lack of questions. She felt fortunate that her first time had been with someone like him. Erica commented on the boat, noting its age and questioning if it was characteristic of Floriza. A lady warned her to be careful, as she might get wet. A servant commented on the clarity of the water, while another explained that it was magically purified by the Thebes royalty, hence its exceptional clarity. Scarlett's father asked if she had fulfilled her wedding night duties. Scarlett confirmed she had. Her father inquired if she had caused the Duke any trouble. Scarlett assured him she was fulfilling her obligations. He advised her not to worry about the Duke's potential displeasure, mentioning that it was common for nobles to have mistresses. Scarlett wondered if her father knew about Joshua. She then praised the power of the Chandler Trading Company, acknowledging they even knew about the secret parts of the Duke's mansion. Scarlett's father explained that he had introduced some former maids who worked for him to the Duke, and because the Duke was pleased with his assistance, he had requested to marry Scarlett. He assured Scarlett that the Duke was a man of order and there was nothing to worry about. Scarlett was shocked, realizing her father knew everything about the Duke and still arranged the marriage. She asked if he loved her, recalling how she had always tried to be the perfect daughter, diligently following his teachings. Her father replied that love was a childish concept. He pointed out that he had provided for her, given her a home, and raised her. This meant she had to repay him by becoming the Duchess. He felt he had recouped his investment. He instructed her to take good care of the Duke, saying he would contact her soon, and then left. Upon returning home, Scarlett was greeted by the butler, Lorenzo, who inquired if she had finished her walk. She asked how many of the Duke's staff were Chandler recommendations. Lorenzo replied that Camilla, Maggie, and Abby were recommended, but seemed confused by her question. Scarlett explained that these staff members appeared to be acting as informants for the Chandler Trading Company and instructed Lorenzo to dismiss them all, citing mismanagement of the Duke's household staff. Lorenzo acknowledged her instructions, agreeing to inform the Duke. Back in her room, Scarlett recalled her father's indifferent attitude towards her feelings, remembering his remarks about love. She resolved to stop believing in such naive notions, vowing never again to be used or sold for trivial reasons. Abandoning futile hopes, she resolved to avoid weakness, promising herself to remain strong, never to be a victim again. The Grand Duke spoke to Edmund Lewis, aware he seemed still perplexed. Edmund apologized. The Grand Duke reminded him that his mission was to get close to Huntington's new wife and uncover the Duke's true intentions. He questioned if Edmund had become overly invested in the new bride, recalling the previous night. Edmund described the Duchess as sobbing and trembling, looking as if she were about to break down. He admitted that while he didn't know all the details, it was clear there were significant problems between Duke Huntington and the Duchess. The Duchess seemed deeply traumatized. The Grand Duke found this information intriguing. Duke Samuel asked Scarlett if she had dismissed all of Joshua's maids. Scarlett explained that her father knew about Joshua, and although they had requested discreet maids, some were reporting on the Duke's household affairs to her father. She emphasized that although he was her father, but that she was now a member of the Duke's family and prioritized the safety of the ducal residence. Duke Samuel expressed his approval, calling her a wise wife. He expected her to continue acting wisely as the mistress of the ducal residence. He stressed the importance of appearing deeply in love at the Imperial Ball that day and asked if she could manage it. Scarlett assured him she would. At the Imperial Ball, they received congratulations on their wedding. A man complimented Scarlett's beauty and wished them happiness. Duke Samuel agreed with the man's assessment. Duke Samuel placed his hand on Scarlett's shoulder and asked the Grand Duke if he was sober. The Grand Duke humorously replied that if Duke Samuel hadn't escaped to the bridal chamber, he would have continued drinking. He then formally greeted Scarlett for the first time. Scarlett politely responded, inwardly noting that this was the Grand Duke. The Grand Duke remarked that even at her wedding, she was too beautiful for Duke Samuel. Duke Samuel retorted that if the Grand Duke was jealous, he should just say so, and explained that he had always wanted to get married, questioning why he would postpone such a good thing. He then kissed Scarlett's forehead. Scarlett observed Duke Samuel feigning greater affection in the Grand Duke's presence and wondered why, deciding to play along with his performance for the time being. Scarlett told Duke Samuel he shouldn't behave that way in front of others. The Grand Duke chuckled, saying it must be because they were newlyweds. He then asked if he could have this dance with Scarlett. Duke Samuel jokingly asked if the Grand Duke planned to say anything inappropriate to her. The Grand Duke replied that he planned to tell her the story of how Duke Samuel fell off a ferry as a child and nearly drowned. Duke Samuel warned Scarlett not to listen to the Grand Duke. Scarlett reflected. It seemed Duke Samuel didn't want her near the Grand Duke. She wondered why, considering they had been childhood friends. Scarlett then danced with the Grand Duke. While dancing, the Grand Duke asked Scarlett if she had ever visited the famous Florizel Canal in the capital. Scarlett replied that she had, mentioning that her husband had allowed her to visit her father the previous day, and they had spent some pleasant time by the canal. The Grand Duke said he'd heard Scarlett was the daughter of a merchant baron and was curious what the canal looked like through a merchant's eyes. Scarlett replied that the water, purified by the imperial family's magic, was indeed beautiful and a significant tourist attraction in the capital. From a merchant's perspective, she suggested that upgrading the old ferries could significantly enhance the canal's value. The Grand Duke, intrigued, asked how she would improve the ferries. Just as Scarlett was about to explain, the announcement of the Emperor's arrival interrupted them. The Grand Duke expressed surprise, saying he hadn't expected the Emperor to come due to his health. He surmised that the Emperor's younger brother, Grand Duke Kingsley, must have come to greet him. He then told Scarlett he wanted to hear her ideas in detail later. The Grand Duke told Scarlett that if she had any suggestions, she could give them to his attendant. Scarlett, noticing Edmund, realized that the man was the Grand Duke. He confirmed he would await her message. Feeling melancholic, Scarlett went to the balcony to compose herself. She recalled her encounter with Edmund, deciding it was just a one-night stand, signifying nothing. She resolved not to be swayed by emotions, but to focus on the relationship between her husband and Grand Duke Kingsley. Scarlett realized her husband was hiding something. Despite earning some trust, she saw he intended to use her as a puppet. To change her situation, she understood she needed to find her husband's weakness. She considered that, given the current emperor's frailty, Grand Duke Kingsley, who had the strongest claim to the throne, might be the key. If she could create a rift between the Grand Duke and her husband, it could work to her advantage. As Scarlett turned, pondering how to gain independence and avoid becoming Samuel's tool, she saw Edmund Lewis step onto the balcony. Scarlett asked what Edmund wanted, reminding herself to stay calm. Edmund remarked that she looked pale, explaining he came to check on her, despite knowing it might make her uncomfortable. Scarlett thought to herself that she couldn't appear weak as she had before. She thanked Edmund for tending to her injury on her wedding day and mentioned she would send regards to the Lewis family on behalf of the Huntington family. Edmund replied that it wasn't necessary and began to speak about that day. Scarlett interrupted him, sarcastically asking if he expected the same thing as that day, adding wryly that it would be nice if it were. A flustered Edmund denied it, stammering. Scarlett remarked that their encounter that day had been pleasant and asked Edmund about a rumor she'd heard, whether men and women in the capital became intimate after sharing their woes. She added that it was said no man could resist a woman's tears, but she disliked men who fell in love easily. She then asked Edmund to relay a message to Grand Duke Kingsley that she wished to meet him privately away from her husband. Edmund agreed to her request and promised to inform her when the time came. Scarlett and Duke Samuel sat in the carriage, returning home. Duke Samuel inquired about her conversation with Grand Duke Kingsley. Scarlett reassured him it was nothing special, simply mentioning her trip to the canal with her father. Duke Samuel pressed her, making sure she hadn't mentioned anything unnecessary, especially about Joshua. Scarlett confirmed she hadn't. Duke Samuel warned her to be careful with her words. Scarlett then asked about the close friendship between Samuel and the Grand Duke and why Joshua's existence had to be kept secret. Samuel dismissed her curiosity, telling her to focus on her duties. Scarlett silently realized Samuel was determined to hide Joshua's existence, even going so far as to marry a baron's daughter. She considered uncovering the reason behind this secrecy, using it to exploit Samuel's weakness. Arriving at the mansion, Duke Samuel went inside, while Scarlett stepped out of the carriage. Inside, the house was in disarray. Duke Samuel demanded to know what was happening. A maid stammered about Miss Joshua, while Joshua herself yelled for the Duke to do something. Mentioning Mrs. Moore, Joshua rushed to embrace Duke Samuel, crying out, "My lord." Moore, observing this, commented on Joshua's insistence on seeing the mistress of the house. Scarlett entered the room. Joshua accused her of dismissing all the maids out of jealousy, claiming she was trying to bully her. Moore interjected, explaining the maids were expelled for being the Baron's spies. Joshua furiously claimed Scarlett had falsely accused her maids out of spite, asserting Scarlett hated her because Samuel belonged to her. Joshua clung to Duke Samuel again, protesting that Scarlett had falsely accused her of ruining the wedding dress. Duke Samuel sternly addressed Joshua, reminding her she wasn't allowed to leave the annex without his permission. Joshua reluctantly acknowledged this, admitting she knew the consequences of breaking the rules. Duke Samuel coldly informed her that as punishment, she would be confined for 3 days. He ordered Mrs. Moore to escort Joshua back to the annex. Moore replied that she understood. Moore escorted Joshua away, while Duke Samuel and Scarlett remained. Scarlett reflected Huntington's attitude towards Joshua didn't seem like that of lovers. Duke Samuel apologized to Scarlett for the commotion, praising her performance at the ball, and remarking that she was more intelligent than he had anticipated. Scarlett downplayed his compliments, but Duke Samuel continued, declaring that she now had full authority as the mistress of the mansion and that Mrs. Moore would assist her. He instructed her to look after the residents of the mansion, including managing Joshua to prevent any further disturbances. Scarlett thanked him and promised to fulfill her duties. Later, Scarlett entered the office, questioning if these duties were truly the responsibility of the Duchess. Moore confirmed they were, explaining that she had been handling these matters because the Duke had married late. Moore remarked that, fortunately, the Duke had finally married someone mature like Scarlett, alluding to Joshua's previous undue influence. Scarlett asked Moore if Joshua came from humble origins. Moore confirmed that Joshua was the daughter of a peasant woman and an unknown father, a bastard. She became an orphan at the age of 6 when her mother died. The young master, kind-hearted, couldn't bear to leave her and brought her into the mansion. However, as time passed, her humble origins mattered less, and she became more attached to the master. Scarlett then inquired if this was why Joshua couldn't leave the annex without the Duke's permission. Moore explained that if someone of such low status flaunted their relationship with the master, it would damage the Duke's reputation. Scarlett asked how long Joshua had been confined to the annex. Moore replied that when Joshua first arrived, she was too frail to go out, but as she grew older, the Duke forbade her from leaving. Scarlett asked how old Joshua was. Moore replied that she was 20, the same age as Scarlett, but unlike Scarlett, Joshua was a complete fool. Moore explained that Samuel Huntington had brought Joshua home 15 years ago out of pity, but his attitude towards her now wasn't out of compassion. Moore added that Joshua resembled her, which might be why Samuel didn't want his close friend, Grand Duke Kingsley, to discover her. Scarlett expressed her desire to meet Joshua alone. In a dimly lit room, Joshua heard someone enter, initially assuming it was Samuel. Seeing Scarlett, she became enraged, accusing Scarlett of coming to mock her. Joshua threw a doll at Scarlett, blaming her for sending away all the maids, lying to Samuel, and turning him into a bad person. She claimed Samuel loved her more, insisting the marriage meant nothing. Scarlett thought to herself that Joshua wasn't her enemy, not even powerful enough to be considered a threat. She was just another one of Samuel Huntington's puppets. Scarlett then asked Joshua if she wanted to leave the annex. Joshua, startled, asked what she meant. Scarlett explained that Samuel had given her authority over the Duke's estate assets, including Joshua, so if Joshua wished, she could allow her to leave. Scarlett continued, thinking that perhaps Joshua could help her too. Since they had both been deceived by love, perhaps Joshua, like Scarlett, could understand the truth. However, Joshua, horrified, accused Scarlett of trying to set her up again. She feared Scarlett would tell Samuel she had left without permission, leading to further punishment. Joshua vehemently declared she would never disobey Samuel, believing herself to be a good girl. Scarlett thought that Joshua reminded her of her younger self. She remembered believing that if she was good, obedient, and caused no trouble to her guardians, she would be rewarded with love. Scarlett then told Joshua that although Joshua saw her as an enemy, she, like Joshua, was merely a tool, signifying nothing. Scarlett advised Joshua to consider carefully who her true opponent was. Afterwards, Scarlett returned to her room. The next morning, Jojo mentioned rumors that Duke Huntington was deeply in love with his wife. Another lady commented that it was to be expected, as they were a newlywed couple. Scarlett thought to herself that since their marriage, Samuel hadn't shown much interest in her. She acknowledged she was a wife in name only. In truth, she was grateful for Samuel's indifference, but she chose not to reveal this to others. To the other ladies, she expressed gratitude for being able to serve such a kind man as her husband. One lady commented that Scarlett was a virtuous wife, a rarity these days. Jojo expressed surprise that Duke Huntington had fallen in love, remarking that he seemed humble, unlike other men she had encountered. Another lady mentioned the Duke had charmed several women in the past, questioning whether a man like him knew how to please his wife. Jojo added that the women who had been with the Duke all praised his bedroom skills. Scarlett thought that in the past, she would have been flustered by such comments. However, the Duke's tutor had educated her well on how to navigate such social circles. She then asserted that the Duke was devoted to her, day and night. Tankerville's people inquired about further details, specifically whether Samuel Huntington had satisfied his wife on their wedding night. Scarlett hesitated, unsure how to respond. Tankerville explained she was merely trying to introduce Scarlett to potential lovers. Another acknowledged Tankerville's point, but noted Scarlett seemed embarrassed, unfamiliar with the capital's culture. Jojo added that in the capital, it wasn't uncommon for married women to have multiple lovers. The discussion included the fact that men also engaged in such behavior, questioning why women should be restricted. Tankerville, as the Emperor's mistress, was noted for remaining faithful, despite the Emperor's philandering past. Scarlett thought this environment might explain why Duke Huntington was indifferent to her private life. Lady Tankerville remarked that while the Emperor was a charismatic figure, young, healthy men were always in demand. She then asked Scarlett's opinion of His Highness, George Kingsley. The three ladies present each speculated on what type of man Scarlett might prefer, suggesting qualities such as intelligence, power and wealth, or physical strength. Scarlett, after some thought, admitted her ideal type had always been someone like Duke Huntington. This answer surprised the three ladies. One lady commented that Scarlett's answer wasn't interesting at all, while another mentioned that newlyweds might have different perspectives. The third lady added that Scarlett should stop joking about ideal types. Lady Tankerville then mentioned Prince Perkins's upcoming wedding. A lady confirmed Princess Amaryllis was also nearing marriage and was looking for unique ideas for her son's wedding. Scarlett, feeling tired, returned to her mansion, reflecting on the conversation as she bathed. She recalled one lady's comment about Duke Huntington unexpectedly falling for someone as plain as her, and Lady Tankerville's observation that the Duke was a charming man who attracted many women. Scarlett then realized Joshua might have experienced a similar situation. Scarlett pondered Joshua's predicament, understanding that despite being secluded in the mansion, Joshua wasn't entirely naive. She realized Samuel Huntington's feelings for Joshua might be more about control than genuine love. Perhaps Samuel used stories of other women to deflect attention from Joshua's true status. As Scarlett considered this, a maid helped her with her clothes and mentioned there was a letter for the Duchess. Scarlett felt overwhelmed by the numerous responsibilities, wishing she could be in multiple places at once. She opened one of the letters and found it was an invitation from George Kingsley to a private opera performance, phrased more like a date than a formal invitation. This reminded her of a conversation she'd had with the ladies, where it was mentioned that in the capital, it was common for married women to have multiple lovers, and men were free to do so without social constraints. Scarlett placed the letter on the table, contemplating her situation and accepting the fact that having multiple lovers as a woman in the capital wasn't unusual. She decided to embrace this aspect of her new life, instructing the maid to bring her a dress and jewelry. Scarlett's focus had shifted from personal emotions to how to leverage her current situation to her advantage. Arriving at the Grand Duke's residence in a luxurious carriage, she was greeted by the butler and, as prearranged, was led inside. Grand Duke Kingsley welcomed her, commenting that her beauty surpassed even before, a remark that surprised Edmund Lewis. Scarlett smiled, greeting the Grand Duke warmly, pleased to see him again. During the performance, the girl on stage cried out about greedy humans harming her offspring, vowing revenge with the blood of her children. Calling for war and preparation, she urged the sharpening of blades, glorifying the coming bloodshed. Scarlett, the Grand Duke, and Edmund all watched the performance. On stage, a boy confessed his love, captivated by the girl's ruby-red eyes. The girl questioned why a human had entered her heart, feeling both shamed and delighted by this inescapable situation. The boy then kissed the girl, prompting the Grand Duke to ask Scarlett if she disliked love stories. Scarlett replied that she found it a beautiful story. The Grand Duke added that the tale of the Red Dragon bestowing magic upon the Empire's first emperor was an interesting prelude. Scarlett asked the Grand Duke what he was talking about. The Grand Duke explained that the Red Dragon came to the human kingdom for revenge because her offspring were harmed, implying the Red Dragon had previously mated with another male but had fallen in love with a different man. Scarlett then suggested that perhaps the Red Dragon had fallen for a prince with blonde hair and golden eyes. The Grand Duke, touching Scarlett, remarked that the Red Dragon's red hair must have been as beautiful as his wife's. He then instructed Edmund to wait outside, and Edmund left. The Grand Duke, remarking that they were now alone, asked if this was why she wanted to see him privately. Scarlett replied that she was curious about her husband's closest friend. The Grand Duke, using the past tense, said he had once thought he could entrust his life to her husband. He then moved closer to Scarlett and, without hesitation, kissed her on the lips. Observing the Grand Duke's actions, Scarlett thought the relationship between the two men was intriguing. One pretended to be affectionate towards his wife in front of his friend, while the other seduced his friend's wife. Scarlett decided to go with the flow for now. Even as the Grand Duke continued to kiss her, she wondered why someone would betray a friend they once considered entrusting their life to. As the Grand Duke cupped her face and kissed her again, she pondered if it was love at first sight, but he didn't seem like the type to fall head over heels. The Grand Duke then asked if she found his kiss boring, as she seemed to be thinking of other things. Scarlett replied that she was reminded of the fairy story he had mentioned wanting to hear, specifically how to improve the old boats on the canal. The Grand Duke, slightly surprised, asked if they were talking business now, remarking that she was indeed a merchant's daughter. Scarlett pushed the Grand Duke away, stating this wasn't the place for business and asking if they could schedule another time. The Grand Duke leaned closer, suggesting they find a quieter place next time and asking her to focus on his kiss. As the performance concluded with the actors taking their bows, Scarlett and the Grand Duke left the venue. Outside, Edmund Lewis greeted them, inquiring if the Grand Duke had enjoyed the performance. The Grand Duke confirmed he had. Edmund offered to escort Scarlett, but she declined, saying she could manage. She then told the Grand Duke she would await his call. The Grand Duke suggested she call him George next time. Scarlett agreed, telling him to call her Scarlett. As she left, the Grand Duke remarked to Edmund that Scarlett, whom he had initially assumed to be a naive country girl based on Edmund's description, was actually quite an interesting woman. Edmund watched, fuming. Scarlett returned to Duke Samuel's mansion. Moore greeted her, informing her that the master was waiting for her. Scarlett was surprised to hear Samuel was looking for her. She proceeded to his room. Entering, she apologized for being late, mentioning Moore had said he was looking for her. Duke Samuel bluntly asked who she had been with. Scarlett replied that she had been with the other ladies, mentioning they had gone to the opera, a popular pastime in the city. Duke Samuel acknowledged this, then expressed his hope that she had also fulfilled her social obligations with the other ladies. Scarlett assured him she had. Duke Samuel then said he had called her in to discuss her duties as his wife, leading Scarlett to wonder if he intended to consummate their marriage that night. However, Duke Samuel instead inquired if she was keeping track of her menstrual cycle, showing he primarily viewed her as a tool to produce an heir. Scarlett confirmed she was. He then mentioned her father had claimed she had never born a child and asked if this was true. Scarlett confirmed it was. Duke Samuel informed her a doctor would be coming the next day to examine her, as she might appear healthy, but it was best to be cautious. He dismissed her. Leaving the room, Scarlett thought that perhaps tonight wouldn't happen. The next morning, the doctor asked Scarlett if she had been experiencing a loss of appetite, noting she seemed undernourished. Scarlett explained she hadn't had much of an appetite lately. The doctor stressed the importance of proper nutrition for bearing healthy children, advising her to ensure she ate well. Scarlett promised to try. The doctor then said he would prescribe some herbs to help improve her nutrient levels, suggesting she take them with tea. He advised abstaining from intercourse for the time being and promised to inform the Duke. Scarlett acknowledged this. As the doctor stood to leave, he instructed her to rest well, mentioning he would leave the herbs with the maid. After the doctor left, Scarlett thought she could relax for now. She reflected on her inability to eat due to stress, but felt it was a blessing in disguise, giving her some time. She considered it wise to proceed further with George. If she could use him effectively, she believed she could find a way out of her current predicament. Scarlett was determined to end this marriage before bearing Samuel a child. She considered finding Samuel's weakness to file for divorce, but acknowledged that Samuel and her father wouldn't let her go easily. She realized she needed a plan to ensure her safety after the divorce. Without a solid plan, she could remain trapped indefinitely. Scarlett concluded she needed her own source of income. At a charity bazaar, a lady thanked everyone for attending, mentioning all proceeds would go towards supporting orphans by the sea. Scarlett, upon arriving, noticed some items, thinking to herself, those are aquamarines. Lady Westmiss, noticing Scarlett's interest, remarked that those items had caught her eye as well. Scarlett told Lady Westmiss to buy them if she wanted them. Lady Westmiss insisted the items were more suited to Scarlett. Scarlett replied she was just looking and wasn't interested in buying. Lady Westmiss offered to buy them as a wedding gift for Scarlett, but Scarlett politely declined. Westmiss insisted, saying she thought the items would suit Scarlett very well. Another lady agreed, encouraging Scarlett not to refuse the kind gesture. Scarlett dryly commented that she had higher expectations for the noble ladies of the capital, implying they weren't as intelligent as she had thought. An offended Westmiss demanded an explanation. Scarlett replied that no sensible person would choose aquamarines as a wedding gift. Scarlett explained that aquamarines were said to ensure safe voyages and protect ships from storms. However, smooth sailing required wind, and wind was notoriously unpredictable. Such unpredictability was undesirable in a marriage. She questioned whether Lady Westmiss thought a lowly baron's daughter wouldn't know this. Westmiss stammered a denial. Scarlett asked if she simply hadn't known. Lady Tankerville interjected, saying Lady Westmiss must have forgotten. Westmiss quickly agreed, saying she had indeed forgotten. Tankerville then remarked that now that Scarlett had reminded her, Westmiss would surely remember in the future. Tankerville expressed her own interest in the earrings. Lancer offered to buy the earrings for Lady Tankerville. She thanked him, commenting they suited her, mentioning she enjoyed the capricious nature of the wind. Westmiss excused herself. Tankerville told Scarlett not to mind them, saying they were just jealous that Scarlett had married the most eligible bachelor in the capital. Scarlett thought to herself, they can have him. She smiled, replying, I understand. Tankerville then mentioned ships, asking if Scarlett had heard the news. When Scarlett asked what news, Tankerville explained that a new shipwright had been hired to redesign the canal boats. They were from Fateful, known for their excellent shipbuilding. Scarlett, intrigued by the idea of new canal boats, expressed curiosity about their design. Lady Tankerville mentioned hoping the new boats would offer more privacy, implying clandestine meetings on such a vessel sounded exciting. She also mentioned they were looking for investors, as the project required significant funding. Back at the mansion, Scarlett pondered the potential financial benefits if the ship project was successful. Lost in thought, she heard Edmund Lewis call her name. Scarlett turned in surprise to see Edmund. He seemed equally surprised to see her. Edmund mentioned he was about to deliver a letter to Scarlett. She questioned why she was receiving a letter, wondering if it was related to their previous encounter. As she questioned his right to write to her, he explained it was on behalf of the Grand Duke. Scarlett then took the letter. Edmund asked if she was going to see the canal and warned that it got cold there after sunset. Scarlett, unmoved by his concern, insisted she could take care of herself. Edmund then asked what was wrong with caring about her. Scarlett retorted, asking him who he was to care and accusing him of behaving this way with all his one-night stands. She declared she was pursuing a relationship with his boss and suggested he stop harboring personal feelings for her. Edmund then asked why she had cried that night, pointing out that she had won the Grand Duke's heart without shedding a tear. It had cried throughout their time together, implying it seemed like the first time someone had held her. Scarlett told Edmund she had assumed he preferred clumsy, naive people. Edmund retorted, acknowledging the clumsiness, and stating that the Grand Duke, having been with many women, could easily distinguish between genuine and feigned emotions. Annoyed, Scarlett demanded to know what he was implying. Edmund explained that the Grand Duke wouldn't be deceived as easily as he was and advised Scarlett to be careful. He then handed her the letter, reminding her the Grand Duke's approach wasn't accidental. Scarlett countered that nothing she did was accidental either and dismissed his concern. Edmund then took his leave. Scarlett opened the letter, reading that the Grand Duke would send a carriage to Rosella next Saturday at 8 p.m. She reflected that even if the Grand Duke had ulterior motives for approaching her, she needed his power now. However, she realized she couldn't get what she needed for free. There had to be something in return. Scarlett understood there was much to prepare before seeing him again. In the morning, a man named Pussine greeted Scarlett Huntington, introducing himself as the general manager of the Tabai branch of the Dissamar Trading Company. Scarlett complimented his fluency in Tobanese, noting his Pan-Zean heritage. Pussine emphasized the importance of language in business, and mentioned he had heard she was interested in the canal boat renovations, inquiring if the Huntington family planned to invest. Scarlett explained she would decide based on the designs. Pussine admitted nothing was finalized yet, as they could only proceed after the designs were complete. Scarlett countered that investors might be more interested if they could see the designs first. Pussine agreed, but stated they were still drafting ideas. Scarlett then revealed she had her own design ideas, and asked if he would like to see them. Pussine expressed interest. After reviewing her ideas, he found them intriguing, remarking that if successful, it could be a captivating business. Scarlett asked Pussine if he thought they could realize her designs. Pussine replied that they would need investment capital to begin and, more importantly, permission from Princess Amarales, the owner of the canal. He then inquired if the Huntington family might be interested in investing. Scarlett firmly replied they would not. She thought to herself that using the Duke's money would likely result in Samuel claiming all the profits. She wanted this project to be entirely her own. Scarlett then told Pussine she would find investors herself once the designs were finalized. Pussine, delighted, asked if she was serious. Scarlett confirmed and asked how long finalizing the designs would take. Pussine suggested having Matthias start immediately tomorrow, but expressed concern about obtaining Princess Amarali's permission. Scarlett confidently told him to leave that to her, stating she already had a plan. Meanwhile, Duke Samuel spoke with Joshua, asking if he was still angry. Joshua expressed his displeasure, saying he hated that Samuel never took his side and never came to see him. Duke Samuel tried to appease him, gesturing to the flowers he had brought. Joshua reluctantly accepted the flowers, asking where they came from. Samuel mentioned he had thought of Joshua picking them from around the canal. This made Joshua curious about the blooming flowers, expressing a desire to see them. He then hesitantly asked Samuel if he could go to the canal to see the flowers. Samuel firmly replied that it was too dangerous outside, reiterating that the world was full of terrible people, and he didn't want Joshua to get hurt. Joshua recalled Scarlett's offer to help him sneak out without Samuel's knowledge and began to consider his options. Pussine said he would contact Scarlett soon. She replied, expressing her determination for the project's success. Pussine then remarked that her smile reminded him of someone he used to know, prompting Scarlett to ask for an explanation. Pussine explained, hoping not to offend, but he wanted to inquire about her maiden name. Scarlett revealed it was Chandler. Pussine noted her striking resemblance to a deceased Pansian old friend. Scarlett offered her condolences. Pussine thanked her, expressing the feeling that his friend was smiling down from heaven upon her plans, predicting its success. Scarlett asked if this was his professional opinion as a merchant. He replied affirmatively, stating he was never wrong. Scarlett then said she would speak with him again soon. As she prepared to leave, Pussine muttered about the uncanny resemblance, wondering if there was a blood relation, implying the prophecy might be true. Scarlett walked towards the carriage with her bag. Edmund Lewis was already seated there. Edmund stepped out and offered his hand to help Scarlett into the carriage. She thought refusing his help might be awkward, but ultimately accepted and entered the carriage. Inside, the Grand Duke was already seated. He took Scarlett's hand, complimenting her appearance. Scarlett greeted him warmly. The Grand Duke indicated it was time to depart. Edmund then began to drive the carriage. Scarlett expressed gratitude for the Grand Duke's prompt response, mentioning she had been looking forward to this. The Grand Duke told her he had a gift for her, specifically a set of aquamarine jewelry, which he presented as a wedding gift. Scarlett, surprised, questioned if he was serious. The Grand Duke explained he had heard Lady Westmarch had mocked Scarlett with the jewelry, but had ended up humiliating herself. He remarked that Lady Westmarch had underestimated Scarlett, taking her for a simple country girl. The Grand Duke praised Scarlett for successfully proving her worth. Scarlett expressed surprise that such trivial matters had reached the Grand Duke's ears. He leaned closer, reminding her to call him George and urging her to relax and enjoy their time together. He requested she wear the jewelry he had given her every time they met, but not to let Duke Samuel know. Scarlett pushed the Grand Duke's hand away, questioning the value of the gift, criticizing its fine craftsmanship but inferior quality. She compared it to something fit for a high-class prostitute, expecting a more impressive gift if she were to be the Grand Duke's companion. The Grand Duke, chuckling, admitted his mistake. Scarlett tossed the jewelry box out the window. The Grand Duke apologized, acknowledging his possible lack of taste. He offered to take her to a jewelry store to buy the finest pieces as an apology, but Scarlett refused. The Grand Duke, sensing he had hurt her feelings, asked what he could do to make amends, even offering a kiss. Scarlett declined, thinking everything was falling into place for her plan. She then told the Grand Duke she wanted something more than jewelry, making him curious as to what that could be. Scarlett explained that she didn't want to be given jewelry. She wanted to be in a position to buy it herself. She pointed out that while her husband gave her an allowance and she managed all the household affairs, she desired something independent of her husband's estate. The Grand Duke asked why she felt this way. Scarlett explained that her husband could take that money away at any time. She wanted something secured in her own name, something that couldn't be taken from her. When the Grand Duke inquired if there was a problem with her marriage, Scarlett replied that everything was fine, but she couldn't predict when her husband's affections might change. She concluded that having her own money to buy jewelry was more reliable than relying on someone else to buy it for her. The Grand Duke invited Scarlett to continue, asking what business proposition she had in mind. Scarlett explained that she had recently met with Pussine and the shipwright, Matthias, to discuss the next steps for the project. She presented her gondola design, a boat that could accommodate 6 people, including the gondolier. Unlike existing boats, the gondola was steered with a single, long oar. The Grand Duke, intrigued by the novel design, remarked that he had never seen anything like it. Scarlett explained that the gondola's high walls would prevent passengers' clothes from getting wet, unlike the low sides of the existing boats. She highlighted its streamlined design, ideal for navigating the bustling canal. The Grand Duke noted the varying designs. Scarlett explained that 80 to 90% of boat riders were either Thebanins or wealthy tourists, so each design catered to these different classes. She emphasized that the gondola's design would appeal to noble women, and the bustling canal would become a prime dating spot once the boats were improved. The Grand Duke envisioned young men and women flocking to the canal in the future. Scarlett explained that each gondola would have a different price, with the ones offering the most privacy being the most expensive. The Grand Duke raised a concern that the nobles might tire of the gondolas after a few uses. Scarlett mentioned their recent opera visit, which had sparked an idea. She observed that the increasing popularity of opera had led to many students applying for music programs, hoping to become singers. Scarlett mentioned that many young students struggled with finding employment and proposed a unique solution: gondoliers who both rode and performed music. This dual role would entertain guests, making the gondolas more appealing. By rotating the music and gondoliers seasonally, they could keep the experience fresh and encourage repeat visits. Scarlett also mentioned that popular gondoliers could transition to theater performances, attracting students eager to audition, thus ensuring they secured top talent. The Grand Duke considered the proposal seriously. The Grand Duke approved the business plan, genuinely appreciating its value. He explained that the existing boats wouldn't be replaced, but would continue operating at dawn and dusk for transportation purposes, with lowered fares to accommodate any dissatisfied customers. This approach was deemed financially sound and an excellent way to promote Floriza as the prominent capital of Theban. Scarlett agreed, pointing out that as long as Princess Amaryllis approved, the project would showcase the greatness of the Theban royalty to the people and the world. The Grand Duke praised Scarlett's polished, professional demeanor, acknowledging her business acumen. He mentioned that although his sister was in charge of canal affairs, Scarlett, speaking with her directly would be more effective, and he would arrange a meeting for her. Scarlett then brought up that building new boats and hiring gondoliers would require significant funding. The Grand Duke, understanding the funding requirements, inquired if she was seeking investment. Scarlett confirmed the need for investment, but stated that if he wasn't interested, they would find other investors. The Grand Duke chuckled in response. Scarlett explained that Pussine had mentioned the business plan should be attractive enough to draw multiple investors. The Grand Duke pointed out that finding someone willing to pay a large sum up front might be challenging. Scarlett replied that she approached him first because he had that kind of investment potential. The Grand Duke then asked what he would get out of the investment. Scarlett assured him all profits from the investment would be his, but she had another proposition. The Grand Duke inquired about this additional proposition. Scarlett explained that she planned to cease cooperation with the Chandler Trading Company and work exclusively with the Dissamar Trading Company. This change would shift operations to the Kingsley Royal Port, thus increasing tax revenue for the royalty. While Dissamar wasn't yet a major player due to fierce competition, this business plan represented an opportunity for them to expand and ultimately contribute more taxes. However, the Grand Duke declined, stating he already had enough money and preferred to be compensated in another way. Scarlett asked what the Grand Duke wanted. He revealed he wanted her heart. She was taken aback by this request, clarifying that she had come to discuss a business proposition and seek investment, not offer a romantic relationship. The Grand Duke insisted he wanted to be admired and cherished by her, even more than her husband, Samuel. Scarlett, stunned, questioned if the Grand Duke was serious, wondering if he truly let love influence his actions. She then asked what he would do if she decided to change her mind after receiving the investment. The Grand Duke, surprised by Scarlett's swift dismissal, remarked that he had thought himself more charming and that she wouldn't tire of him so quickly. Scarlett replied that she was a woman of business ethics and wouldn't make deals based on personal preferences. The Grand Duke conceded that he needed to try harder to win her heart and proposed they begin their relationship as business partners first. He then asked if he could give her a gift before settling on the investment amount. Scarlett was surprised by this offer. The Grand Duke expressed his desire to find jewelry that suited her and instructed Edmund to head to Rosella to find a gift. Arriving at the jewelry store in Rosella, the Grand Duke explained that the store was a rare jewelry boutique that only accepted guests by invitation, emphasizing its exclusivity. He pointed out that unlike money, with which one could buy many things, status wasn't easily acquired, highlighting the prestigious nature of the store. The Grand Duke then told Scarlett she could choose any piece she liked as an apology for his earlier blunder. Scarlett, surprised by the offer, considered the various options. She noticed a flowering plant among the jewelry, reminding her of the flower rings she used to make as a child. The Grand Duke asked Scarlett if she liked the flowering plant, but she hesitated, thinking carefully. She realized George had specifically brought her to the jewelry store before settling on the investment amount, and he had mentioned giving her a suitable piece of jewelry. Scarlett understood this was a test of her taste. The Grand Duke was likely using her choice to determine how much he should invest. Realizing this, Scarlett knew she had to choose wisely. She saw an opportunity to select a gift that was not only impressive, but would also elevate her perceived value. Scarlett reasoned she needed to choose wisely, finding a gift that would enhance her worth. The Grand Duke commented on a particular piece of jewelry. The shopkeeper praised the Grand Duke's taste, noting the piece was a favorite of Empress Andrea during the Empire's peak, representing the highest quality and craftsmanship. The Grand Duke then questioned if such an extravagant gift was too much for a business partner. Scarlett countered by asking what he considered appropriate, contrasting it with the cheap aquamarines he had offered previously. She reminded him she was offering a significant business deal and was even willing to sever ties with her family. The Grand Duke commented that Scarlett seemed to only see him as another business partner. He agreed to cease cooperation with the Deceit trading company. Scarlett responded, declaring her intention to expand the Chandler family business within the capital to rival Deceit. She expressed disappointment that the Grand Duke couldn't see this as an opportunity to expand his influence within the capital. The Grand Duke admitted he seemed to be repeatedly disappointing her and explained that wasn't his intention. He then decided to purchase the necklace, instructing the shopkeeper to send the bill to his address. The shopkeeper respectfully complied. The Grand Duke acknowledged that as a business partner, he might be overpaying for the gift, but as an admirer, he was just beginning to show his affection. He then asked for Scarlett's forgiveness for his short-sightedness, hoping the gift had made a good impression and wondering if he now had a chance to win her heart. Scarlett cautiously agreed, saying she might consider it. As they returned to the carriage, the Grand Duke mentioned they would sign a formal contract at their next meeting. Scarlett emphasized the importance of obtaining Princess Amarali's permission and stated she was relying on George in this regard. The Grand Duke commented that Scarlett was becoming increasingly captivating. Before she left, the Grand Duke remarked to Edmund Lewis that he had initially thought Scarlett was a naive, easily manipulated country girl. Instead, he found himself being manipulated, becoming an investor in her ventures. He admitted Scarlett was more intelligent, independent, and well-connected than he had anticipated. He mused that with proper guidance, she might be instrumental in keeping Samuel in check. Meanwhile, Edmund noticed Scarlett looked more gaunt than before, wondering if she was eating properly, recalling she hadn't touched any of the afternoon snacks. Scarlett arrived at her mansion and sat on the sofa. A maid asked if she wanted dinner prepared, but Scarlett declined, saying she wasn't hungry. She then reflected on her plan, to use George Kingsley to develop her business and save enough money to escape Samuel. Scarlett acknowledged she had taken the first step towards freedom and intended to remain single and free once divorced from Samuel Huntington. To secure a favorable divorce, Scarlett planned to identify Samuel's weaknesses and how to use them against him. She knew the Huntington family was the second most powerful family in the empire, and within the capital, Samuel's influence was greater than George Kingsley's. If Joshua's existence became known, it might slightly damage Samuel's reputation, but the impact wouldn't be significant. Scarlett continued to ponder, realizing the current situation posed no substantial threat to Samuel. She considered how to weaken his position, deciding she needed George's help. Contemplating whether to play the role of George's lover, she decided to feign being hard to get so he would remain interested until she had acquired everything she needed. She resolved not to let her guard down around George and to understand precisely what he wanted from her. At that moment, the maid announced a delivery from Rosella. Scarlett responded, puzzled, Rosella. She wondered what it could be, as she had already returned with a necklace. Seeing the box, she recognized it as a ring box, thanked the maid, and dismissed her. Opening the box, Scarlett found the ring she had initially noticed. She wondered if George had sent it. Scarlett read the note, which said, "Please make sure you eat well. Your health is important." She then realized the handwriting didn't match George's. She wondered if someone else had noticed her looking at that ring earlier. She recalled Edmund's words, "Once the sun sets, the wind by the canal gets quite cold. You might catch a cold quickly. What's wrong with me caring about you? Be careful." Scarlett pondered why Edmund would care about her, knowing full well about her involvement with George. She felt neither of them would benefit from such concern. She realized she couldn't remember the last time she had a proper meal, and she had thrown away the doctor's medicine. Scarlett worried that if she lost any more weight, she would look ill and Samuel might force her to eat. Furthermore, she worried that if she appeared unhealthy, George might find her unattractive. Scarlett was sitting at the dining table when a maid came to ask if she had called for someone. Scarlett replied that she would have dinner now, a light meal since it was late. While waiting for her meal, she reflected on Edmund's concern for her health. She realized maintaining her health was crucial for the challenges ahead. If she wanted to enjoy her success, she needed to start taking better care of herself. She decided to eat a smaller portion. It was the day of the Imperial Ball. Duke Samuel remarked that he had never seen anything like it. Scarlett explained it was a wedding gift from her family. Duke Samuel responded with a curious, "Is that so?" Scarlett then changed the subject, requesting permission from Duke Samuel for another matter. She explained that her mother wanted to send her younger sister, Erica, to an academy in the city and asked if they could provide Erica with etiquette lessons before she enrolled. Duke Samuel granted permission, stating Scarlett could do as she pleased. Scarlett thanked him for his approval. Duke Samuel reminded Scarlett of her duties for the evening. She responded in the affirmative. As Scarlett considered her duties, she realized she had to meet with Princess Amarales to secure permission for the gondola business. She then joined a group of friends for tea. One friend commented on Lady Tonkel's impressive dress. Another observed that this might explain why His Majesty seemed healthier tonight, noting that Lady Tonkel had been kept by his side for many years. A third friend questioned whether His Majesty having a mistress was beneficial for the Empress, observing that the royal couple still seemed unhappy. Scarlett observed Princess Amarales approaching Tankerville and overheard the ladies discussing the strained relationship between the princess and the emperor, implying both had been treated unfairly. This made Scarlett curious about the truth behind Princess Amarales' relationship with the emperor. Edmund Lewis then arrived and asked Scarlett to come with him. As she followed, she pondered the meaning behind the ring he had given her, questioning if it was out of pity or something else. She considered asking him about it, but worried he might deny any knowledge of the ring, especially since it had been sent anonymously. Edmund led Scarlett to a door and told her someone was waiting for her inside. Scarlett entered the room and found it empty. Suddenly, the Grand Duke approached her, remarking that he had missed her. Scarlett reminded him that her husband was nearby, but the Grand Duke dismissed the concern, pointing out that her husband wasn't in the room. Scarlett insisted she didn't want to do anything risky within the palace, and said she needed to discuss something with him before meeting the princess. She mentioned hearing about the strained relationship between Princess Amarales and the Emperor. The Grand Duke replied that calling it strained was an understatement, revealing the princess's hatred for the emperor had been long-standing. Scarlett inquired if there was a specific incident that caused this animosity. The Grand Duke vaguely alluded to numerous issues, stating the emperor had been taking things from the princess since her birth. Scarlett asked him to elaborate on the previous comment. He explained that members of the royal family possessed certain magical abilities from birth. Scarlett acknowledged she had heard about the Red Dragon's gift being passed down through the royal bloodline. The Grand Duke confirmed this and revealed that he himself had once possessed this gift. When Scarlett inquired if he no longer had it, the Grand Duke explained that over time, internal conflicts within the royal family led to a new law. This law stipulated that the firstborn child would inherit the throne and, consequently, all their siblings' magical powers. Scarlett reflected on the royal family's tradition, where members under the age of 18 were susceptible to having their magical powers taken. This practice ensured that when the firstborn turned 18, they were declared the heir and inherited their siblings' magical gifts. This tradition was meant to strengthen the royal authority and reduce internal conflicts. She then mentioned to the Grand Duke that according to this tradition, Princess Amaryllis should have been queen. The Grand Duke explained that his father, Frederick II, opposed this idea. Frederick believed the royal authority would be stronger if it could absorb the powers of multiple siblings. However, he worried that a female ruler might be distracted and wouldn't produce enough heirs. Therefore, when Amaryllis turned 18, she was married to Duke Birkin, with the primary expectation that she would bear children. This arrangement was intended to allow the new emperor to absorb the magical powers of her offspring. Scarlett reflected on the injustice of Princess Amaryllis being robbed of her throne by her younger brother and forced to live a life of childbearing solely for his benefit. The unfairness appalled her. The Grand Duke then warned Scarlett against mentioning the Emperor or Amaryllis' former husband, explaining they had divorced 3 years prior and hadn't been in contact since. Scarlett agreed to be cautious. The Grand Duke approached his sister, Amaryllis, commenting on her recent drinking habits, noting she had been drinking a lot lately and suggesting she take better care of herself. Amaryllis expressed her joy at the Grand Duke being in the city, saying they could see each other often now. The Grand Duke responded warmly, admitting he had missed her as well, and introduced Scarlett. Scarlett stepped forward and greeted Princess Amaryllis, introducing herself as Scarlett Huntington. Amaryllis remarked that she had heard many rumors about Scarlett's loving relationship with her husband, Duke Huntington. Scarlett replied that she was grateful to serve Duke Huntington. Amaryllis questioned the sincerity of Scarlett's affections, implying she could sense a hidden resentment towards her husband, a feeling she herself was very familiar with. Scarlett responded, confused, saying she didn't understand what Princess Amaryllis meant. Amaryllis then revealed that Duke Huntington used to be a free spirit, much like her former husband, and inquired how many women Huntington had been involved with in the city. Scarlett attempted to downplay the past, insisting Duke Huntington had been kind and faithful to her since their marriage. However, Amaryllis chuckled, commenting that Scarlett was indeed the shrewd businesswoman George had described, particularly appreciating her convincing ability to lie. The Grand Duke suggested Scarlett's story might pique curiosity and encourage her to share. Amaryllis replied that it wasn't appropriate to discuss such matters in the current setting and instructed Scarlett to visit her at the palace if she had more to say. The Grand Duke also agreed to visit Amaryllis at the palace. Amaryllis then departed. Scarlett remarked that Amaryllis didn't seem to like her very much. The Grand Duke reassured her that wasn't the case, implying Amaryllis was unlikely to invite someone she disliked to her home. Scarlett expressed her concern about making mistakes while visiting the palace without the Grand Duke's support. The Grand Duke reassured her, suggesting she focus on the music, and invited her to dance with him. While dancing, the Grand Duke explained that although Princess Amaryllis seemed aloof, she was actually quite kind. He explained that Amaryllis disliked men who disrespected women, and that she particularly despised Samuel for his inappropriate behavior before their marriage. Amaryllis doubted that marriage alone could change a man's character overnight. The Grand Duke then questioned if Samuel's past behavior was truly as it seemed. Scarlett asked the Grand Duke why he was questioning Samuel's loyalty and kindness. The Grand Duke replied that he was merely gathering information about his rivals, implying he wasn't jealous. Just then, Duke Samuel arrived and noticed Scarlett dancing with the Grand Duke. Scarlett pointed out that her husband was watching. The Grand Duke remarked that Samuel was quite a jealous man. They stopped dancing. The Grand Duke reassured Scarlett that their business venture would surely succeed, even implying it was now their business. Scarlett thought to herself that her neck felt stiff, possibly due to the necklace, and wondered where the ladies' restroom was. Scarlett headed towards the ladies' restroom, but Duke Samuel intercepted her, commenting that she seemed quite popular among the royalty. Scarlett, startled, asked him why he was there. Duke Samuel grabbed her hand and pulled her into a room. He held her hands, angrily demanding to know what she had discussed with George Kingsley, and the episode ends there.